the dark side, what addiction had done to myself, and the devastation it created through my dad's life.
When you're younger, you don't fully understand consequence.
A lot of us out there that have addictions don't turn around and say, I need it. We call it a reward.
It is one of them ones where it alters your brain chemistry.
Are you born with addictive personality? Do you have an addictive personality? Do I? I know I do.
That addiction will always come first, and they don't care what you say, how you say it, how you go about it. They don't care. Everyone, welcome back to Father and Daughter Podcast. It's our 11th episode today? 12th episode.
12th
episode today.
12th episode.
Losing track. It's going to get to a point where we're like 99th episode. Do you think we'll still do it at that point?
I don't know.
But yeah, guys.
I'll be grey.
Hope you're all doing well, whether you're watching this in the morning, afternoon, evening. Thank you for tuning in as always. My name is Ria.
And my name is Mem, the father of Ria.
Co-writers and creators of The Only Way We Knew. A crime psychological thriller.
Based on true events.
I like to do it.
Can you hear the bird in the background?
Yeah.
It's calling. It's a magpie. Hold up. No.
Say, Mem. Stop being an arsehole. So, yeah, back again for another episode. How you feeling?
I feel good. Yeah, I liked the last episode.
Did you?
Yeah, I did. It was nice that we went over... can you hear it?
I can, yeah.
It was nice that we went over certain things regarding the book. You know, the whole editing process, where we are with it, how it first evolved and how it was good. But actually watching it back... I actually really enjoyed that episode.
I enjoyed
it enlightened a lot for me again. But yeah, it was a good episode.
It actually got me thinking. We didn't actually speak about us going from writing the book to wanting to do documentaries that we did on YouTube. I felt like we missed that bit out.
Yeah, we did actually.
But when you think about how much we've done since first starting to write the book, done quite a bit, haven't we?
Yeah.
So yeah, I enjoyed the last episode as well.
Yeah,
it was good to touch base.
Yeah. I mean, like when you actually just mention that now, it would have been nice to actually mention the videos that we did initially at the beginning, because they were the beginning. That that led to what we're doing now.
Yep.
And really enjoyed them as well. I really did. I mean. Maybe we could do another podcast about those.
I'm sure we will get into it in the future.
Today's subject, it's a bit of a tricky one. It's a deep one. I do believe everyone out there that will be watching that has somehow dealt with it themselves, or know of someone that has dealt with it, dealing with it, or gonna deal with it. And the subject that we're going to be talking about today, which is
addiction.
And why addiction? Why have we picked addiction today?
Well, like you said, not only is it something that everyone, whether it's something they've personally experienced or been a witness to someone experiencing it, it's a very worldwide subject. And it also is a very key topic in our novel, The Only Way We Knew. It comes in all different forms, doesn't it, in general? Yeah. And we just feel like this episode would be good for us to highlight those different forms that it comes in and raise awareness of it and just go into detail with it a little bit more. So, yeah.
Addiction itself plays a big part in the book. I mean, it was only until, I started looking back and I started noticing, the problems that were in my family as well as my issues. relating to... I'm going to shoot that bird. Can you hear it?
We got a special guest today.
There is a bird and it is singing out there. But anyway, so yeah, the book itself, entails quite a lot of addiction itself, even from like Dad, myself, and the different types of addiction there was, you know, and it'd be nice to go over, what types of addiction there is out there.
Yeah.
And even sort of like briefing on some of the addictions that we had without going too deep into them, to allow the readers of the book to actually dwell into the dark side, what addiction had done to myself and the devastation it created through my dad's life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And about yourself.
Yes, indeed. I think in this episode, it's going to be main priority to cover what addiction is, the different types of addictions that there are, and the effects it has on the people with active addictions and also the people around them. So what's your interpretation of addiction? So there's an actual definition of it, but what's your interpretation of it?
My interpretation of addiction is lost control and can't say no.
Yeah.
That's my interpretation of it.
Definitely is what addiction is. That's in the simplest form. So it can be using, taking a behaviour that one person has, and they basically are doing that, using that to the point where it now has become harmful to them. That can be physically or mentally. And yeah, it comes in all different kinds of forms, different shapes, sizes, different levels of what you would deem dangerous and not, and how some addictions can, in moderation, be perfectly normal. But if you overstep that line, it can become very harmful. So I believe with addiction, from research that I've done, there are 4 C's. So it's called 4 C's. And what they are craving, compulsion, control, and consequence. So they're the 4 C's that make up an addiction. Make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. And obviously through looking and researching, I think when we all think of addiction, me personally, and I'm sure a lot of people, what comes to mind is heroin or drugs. Yeah, you think of a drug addict. And I think that's one of the most... I think we see the most effects from that, hence why it sticks in our minds the most. You can see how, like, heroin, like you just said, can ruin someone's life to the point where they're homeless. They're on the streets. And therefore we see that and automatically brand that as like a negative, which it is 100%. But sometimes you can overlook the other kinds of addictions that there are. So upon more research, I've seen that there's 2 categories of addiction. You've got substance abuse and non-substance abuse. So obviously the substance abuse is like alcohol, nicotine, caffeine, the drugs, inhalants, like solvent abuse and so forth. And then on the other side of it, the non-substance abuse is things like gambling, shopping, sex, pornography, shoplifting, video games, internet use, sugar, eating, dieting. There are so many different kinds of addictions. And like I said, some of them you would never think of, would you? Being an addiction. You'd just think, just think of the drugs. But it's not all about drugs. There's many different kinds of addictions and they all have got negative effects one way or another.
It's the limit of it, isn't it? It's the limitation of it. It's when do you say enough is enough? So like when you mention those things, you did mention like the substances and the physical, the ones that you're physical ones, it does ring quite a lot of bells in the head. Do you know what I mean? And, you know, when we talk about addiction, you know, how does all these addictions start? You know, when we look at my own personal, see, I can only talk about my own thing. So let me just get something straight here. Whatever I'm going to be talking about, I can only talk about my own experiences and what I've learned from myself and other people that are close to me. I'm no professor, you know, I'm no counsellor, I'm no psychologist, so I can only talk about what I know.
Yeah.
And it's important that I get that over, because I don't want someone to think I think I'm a psychologist, and I'm not. So looking at what you said and me putting my experiences towards that, I have to always say to myself, it wasn't just me this happened to. It's happened to millions and millions of people, and they don't just become an addict.
No.
You understand what I mean? So when you say there about sugar, when you talk about shopping, when you talk about shoplifting, when you talk about pornography. When you talk about porn, what was the other one that you mentioned there? I'm not talking about substances. I'm talking about
like video games, the
internet. You can see how a couple of those, I can see how they could become addictive, and I can have a little bit of that myself. You know, I can browse a bit too much online. You know, not the porn, but I'm on about, like, you know,
just to clarify.
Yeah, I need to clarify that. But I can be stuck on it a bit too long, and I can see how you lock onto it. And I've got to the stage where
when you notice it, you kind of before it becomes.
And I put a stop to it, and I've learned that in myself. But this has only been learned after I've stopped and understood my control and understood my personality. So then you talk about the substance addictions such as heroin, cocaine, marijuana, and there's quite a lot. Do you know what? Well, do you know what was the first addiction?
Was it opiate?
No, I think the first one was alcohol.
I get that. Yeah,
I think it was alcohol. So we can actually say, you know, a person with an addiction, you know, it's gone back thousands of years.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It isn't something that's just new.
Fermenting, like
the spirit, the creating spirit. I mean, the opioid drugs, morphine, I think that goes back a few thousand years as well. You know, I can't remember who it was, I think cannabis has been around for 3,500 years. And all these things is like a stimulant. It's like an escapism. And you can become addicted to these things depending on your lifestyle and your personality and a whole mixture of things. But addiction, I feel like it's a big problem in the world at the moment.
Yeah. So I feel like with regards to like the non-substance abuse kind of addictions, I feel like it's something that you've done once. Like, so for example, like, I don't know, we're going to speak about like gambling, for example. You may have had a party and your friends are all like, let's play a card game. Do you know what I mean? All put £1 in and you so happen to win. Then you've won all that money, and that buzz that you feel from it, you're like, this is amazing. You then search for that time and time again, and before you know it, you've developed a habit.
Yeah.
Same for ones like shopping and even like shoplifting. I think maybe it's like the adrenaline you must get from it. Some people like that. Some people are drawn to that kind of feeling, hence why they develop a bit of an issue with it.
So do you tend to find people are shoplifting even though they don't need to shoplift?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So we get that right, yeah?
Yes. There may not be a need to shoplift.
They can buy it.
You could
but
probably buy it, but because you know that you can, or there's a little bit of a risk involved.
So there's an adrenaline.
And I was just going to say, with regard to like substance abuse. So I believe how it starts, and again, like you said, you're speaking from like your personal experiences and what you've personally been a witness to and so forth. Just like myself, I'm not going to speak in like generalized terms, like just my opinion. So I feel like with substance abuse, there'll either be two roads that you've gone down there with. It's either been a bit of fun, you know, not fully understanding the full consequence of taking a substance. And unless it is a substance like heroin, for example, where you'll take it and you immediately, now your body is going to like crave it. Most substances don't have that effect. It's a prolonged use that create that kind of withdrawal from it when you don't have it. So I feel like it starts off as a bit of fun, and then you create a dependency on that to have fun, because that's what you associate with fun or an escapism, like you mentioned. And I also do think it's got to do with dopamine. So when you do things that you enjoy doing, so maybe like you've got a partner and you enjoy spending time with them and being with them, like makes you feel all these butterflies, and it activates that dopamine in your brain. And addictions often have that effect too, like alcohol, even smoking weed, whatever it may be, it activates that dopamine and it temporarily gives you a element of fulfillment. Yeah. Am I making sense? Yeah. So I feel like over time, that's what you're chasing. You don't know it's a chemical reaction. You just seeing it as how you are, how you're feeling. Do you know what I mean? So I do think that that's how that kind of kickstarts. I mean, I believe addicts in general will all have different reasons for why they have an addiction. Like I can remember being out in Shoreditch one evening, and we were outside like a bar. And have you been to Shoreditch before? Yeah. So when I had been to Shoreditch, it was quite rife with like I'd say alcoholics, like homeless alcoholics. And they would ask people who were outside the clubs for like a cigarette, or have you got a pound or whatever. And me and my friend, we got to talking to this one guy because he like asked us for a pound or whatever. And I don't know how we ended up talking about this, but I think he came off of his own accord saying it, but he started talking about his life and how he like ended up where he ended up. My wife left me. She took the house, took the kids or whatever. And then I got myself in a hole, started drinking. I think what my point is that people can have different reasons for why they can kickstart an addiction. So in one breath, I've said it can start off as a bit of fun. And in another breath, it can be like a comfort blanket to try and ease the pain. So, yeah.
So taking on what you just said there is, I feel like you're on the right tracks. I feel like it must have happened to millions of people that, so I'll just be blatant. So I remember the first time I took coke, and I took it on my brother's birthday. I know I'm going broad. I'm going.
That's all right.
Into something different, but I'm just giving a scenario. So this has happened to millions and millions of people. So I'm at my brother's birthday party. We were at a wine bar in Blackheath.
How old was you?
I must have been 17, and I was with my best mate, and my best mate was there. He was, if I talk about this now to him, he will laugh. And I can remember we was at this party. I had a bottle of beer. First time I've ever drank beer, you know. But I felt privileged that my brother had asked me to come to his birthday party, and all my brothers' mates were there. They were like 7 years older than me, so I felt in my element. Now I was surrounded by my brother and his mates. Now being 17, I felt, even though me and my brother was not close, I felt protected by him.
You felt an element of freedom.
Yeah,
also.
I felt like I had protection by my brother, and being invited to a do that he had, and I could see everyone was grown up. It was a grown up life, It weren't like I was young at school, and I was bringing my best mate, and we had this beer and all that. And I can remember I went for a piss, and as I was waiting to go in the cubicle, one of my brother's mates came out and looked at me and went, "There's one in there for you." And I didn't know what the fuck he was talking about. There's one in there for me. And he went, "Oh, by the way, when you finish that, I'll give you one to your mate." So I was like, I don't know what the fuck he's talking about. And I'm just giving you this story, and I think this is how the problem starts, alright? So I've walked into the cubicle, and I ain't got a clue what he's talking about. I've heard about coke, and I've heard about this, and he goes, "It's on the side." So I've looked, and I was like, and I saw this line, and it was on the side. It was only about that big, and I thought, what do I do? And my mate's walked in, and he's like, "I do half, you do half." And I was like, I don't know what we do here. Anyway, we've rolled up a note and that, and I've took half, he's took half. And before I took half, there was this big panic in me, like, what am I doing? But then I looked at where I was, and I think this is really important, and this is where a lot of people out there will get in trouble. You are who you become with your surroundings. So when I looked at my surroundings, and I looked at, it was my brother's mate that gave me it. My brother's mate's been taking it. I looked at my brother, he's probably been taking it. They've all been taking it. And remember, I just told you, I was in my brother's environment where I felt protected. So I was a bit like, nothing can go wrong here. They wouldn't offering it for me if it was bad. Even though I knew it was drugs, and drugs were bad. So I thought, you know what, let's do it. So I'd done it, he'd done it. I can remember going back out and drinking this beer. And the only way I can explain that, if my mate's watching this now, and I'm going to make him laugh, we felt like we was Jean-Claude Van Damme out of Kickboxer. Because we was in this amazing environment, we become enlightened by this euphoria of this narcotic without really getting too out of our heads. The drink was going down like water. The chat was really, really good. And you can imagine, from a school kid, which was only a year and a half before that, I've become into an adult's world. I've been treated like an adult, and I'm having a laugh and a giggle and a conversation with adults now. And I feel the part. And I feel like I fit in. And then that night ends, and I never had a problem with it. I don't feel like I need anything. And I think that's where the problem starts.
Because you feel like you haven't got an addiction. Yeah.
It's not a problem. I'm not addicted to nothing. But the problem is, the next time you go out, if someone offers you one, you don't say no, because you say, I don't have a problem with it. And I think that's where boundaries and doors start to open for you. So obviously you smoke weed, sniff coke, drink alcohol. Where does this end? Your boundary starts to slip. And depending on your personality, and at that time my personality was strong. It was great. I was confident and everything. I was in control. And just like that man you spoke to outside Shoreditch in that club, he was probably drinking anyway before his wife left him and took the kids. But he was in control of the situation. And it was his element of, let's say, escapism. I need to let go tonight. I've worked hard. And a lot of us out there that have addictions don't turn around and say, I need it. We call it a reward. I want to reward myself because I've worked hard. And that's a problem, because we don't say it's a problem. So that guy that was in Shoreditch, it wasn't a problem at that time, but once his wife had left him, that became his attachment. That became his, I can escape now.
Yeah.
Not my reward anymore. Did you get what I mean by saying
100%.
that? So I can only explain these things in the way that I feel like my story is. I've got to be a little bit careful that I don't go too deep into it, because in the book, my addiction, I go into detail with it. My psychological patterns, the way I talk about it, the way my brain was thinking, and even like when I came out of my addictions. So when you talk about different types of addiction, you can drift from one addiction to another.
Definitely.
Because is it escapism or is it a reward? But not realising they're addictions.
I feel like one of the biggest, because obviously we've said there's two different categories, substance, non-substance. But I feel like we'll always have a lot to say when it comes to substance abuse, just in general. I think partially because
it's damaged our families' lives.
Yeah, and it damages a lot of people's lives, but it's so accessible in a sense of alcohol you can buy from any shop. Cigarettes you can buy from any shop. When you're young, often you hear people had their first drink when they were like 13, 14, tried their first cigarette when they were like, I've heard some people were like 8, 9. Do you know what I mean? So it's something that is easily accessible. And when you're younger, you don't fully understand consequence. You're aware of them, but you're so ignorant at the same time, where if you're a little bit of a risk taker, which I feel like a lot of people are more when they're younger, you find yourself in these situations where you're not looking for it, but you're open to it. Like you said, that time in the toilet kind of it raised that fear factor for you. It broke that fear barrier where if there was a situation to occur in the future where that happened, you wouldn't see a reason or associate a reason not to. And I feel like that's a very common thing. Like if I think back actually, so me when I think of addictions and stuff, because drugs I find a very prominent thing in London in general. Like if I think back to being in school, everyone started smoking weed at like 14, 15. Drink ups from 13 years old. Like on the weekend, you'd end up like getting a bottle of drink and all having like, fun, whatever. And I feel like people younger than you think are getting themselves into these addictions with substances without realising. Like I can remember once, I don't think you know this, but when I was 17, I got invited to a rave. And this rave we called a squat rave. Have you heard of a squat rave? Do you know what it is? So it's like an illegal rave.
Yeah, last minute notification, everyone goes.
Yeah, they find an abandoned building, but they completely kit it out with DJs. Yeah. No bouncers, no nothing. You can bring your own alcohol, whatever. Sent the location, got there with my friends. I can remember it was in Vauxhall. And I was a young girl who was like, what the hell is this? Everyone and their auntie was off their face to the point where I felt like I was in a bit of a, not a horror film, but I was like, what am I doing here? Do you know what I mean?
Everyone looked like they were possessed.
Jaws swinging, eyes rolling back to the back of their heads. And there was kids in there, like 12 years old. And I'm looking at them like, what the hell is going on here? But because I'm a kid myself pretty much at 17, I'm like, oh, yeah, like whatever. Only till I stepped away from the situation was I like, what on earth is going on here? We come to leave now and the whole place has been locked off by police, taking everyone's details. We're like, what's gone on? What's happened? And a young boy died. He overdosed on MDMA the first time he ever had taken it. So it wasn't even like an addiction for him. It was just a one-off, one time. And he died there. And I can remember it was a big deal at the time because everyone was like, shit, like, you know. But I think what I'm trying to say is I know a lot of the people at that rave, it wasn't their first time taking whatever substances they were taking. And it is pretty scary how things can escalate from a bit of fun to this is ruining your life. So yeah.
So when we talk about addiction, you know, we talk about different types of addiction. You know, there's a lot of people I know that have had big problems with medicated addictions. Example, morphine. Morphine has ruined 3 or 4 or very close friends of mine. Ruined them. One had a motorbike accident. He broke both his legs. He became addicted to morphine for 4 years and then became an alcoholic after that. Then I had another one that had a skiing accident and he broke his leg, exactly the same. He became addicted to morphine for many years and he went into, he's fine now, but he has anxieties from it just in case he hurts himself and he has to take morphine again. And then there's another one that had an operation and the operation went wrong and had to do an operation again. And these guys were ruined by morphine. And as well as morphine, opioid drugs themselves. It wasn't long ago, you know, where, you know, America, well, they're still doing it now. America are handing out opioid drugs left, right and centre.
You remember that show? You watched it? OxyContin?
I watched one, yeah.
And it was similar thing, injury. This guy, he got injured.
I mean, I knew about it before I watched that drug. I mean, that
series.
That series. But that drug, the opioid drugs, they're highly addictive. They're instantaneously addictive, them drugs. And you can see how people get addicted to just painkillers, ibuprofen. You know, it's frightening. And this is why I say a lot of it is in the personality of the person. You know, are you born with addictive personality? Do you have an addictive personality? Do I? I know I do. I know I have an addictive personality. And that's why, you know, that time when you said I had OCD, I actually went away that time and I was trying to question, do I actually have an addictive personality? Or have I got an...
Am I just obsessive?
Am I an obsessive? Have I got a like OCD? Where I never knew that, and I thought I had an addictive personality. So, you know, I smoked cigarettes for many years, and I look at cigarettes and I think to myself, what did cigarettes ever do for me? Nothing. Doesn't give me no buzz. It doesn't do anything. But you know, I was smoking it. And it just made me realise that a personality can be confused. All of us can have some sort of OCD and we get a misinterpret in the mind to say I've got an addictive personality. And you addict yourself to a substance, a bad addiction, or even a good addiction, because you do have good addictions as well.
You see, with having a good addiction, I think the word addiction is because it's harmful to you.
Yeah.
So
okay.
Do you get what I mean? So
a habit.
Good habits. Yeah.
It all starts off with a habit, doesn't it? You know, it starts off as experimental, a habit, and then an addiction. You know.
Well, why do you think a lot of addicts are in denial that they're an addict?
So it's so hard for me to go into detail because it says so much in the book about it. You know, at what stage do you say I have a
problem?
No, I'm an addict.
Okay.
At what stage do you say I have a problem? And at what stage do you say and need to address this problem. So they're three big, even though they're so close in words,
they're different stages,
so far away from each other. Look, I'll give you a little synopsis. It's a little quote out of the book. You know, have I got a problem if I've got a wife at home and I lose my job? No, I can get another job. Have I got a problem if I lose my job and lose my wife? I've still got my home. She's the problem. The job was the problem, because that's what drugs do. Have I got a problem if I lose my job, lose my wife, and lose my home? You can still query that. It's only until you've lost everything, and it's as if you're on your own and you don't have the right support, you actually realise, you put your hands in your pocket and go, these fucking drugs, alcohols have ate me alive. But by that time, everything is fucking gone. And you realise, I have a fucking problem. And is that where you actually have a realisation of, I need to change this? Or do you end up like that guy outside Shoreditch? I'll always come back to that guy in Shoreditch because you brought it up. Because he's a perfect example. You know, I see these people every day out in Deptford. You know, they're sitting in streets and that, as much as they're homeless and they've got a story behind themselves, they all have an addiction. They all have an addiction for not a reward, an escapism. And this is, where are we in our minds? Is it an escapism or is it a reward? But the problem is the fucking addictions.
One way or another.
You know, I had a few addictions. I had a coke addiction, and I lied to your mum a lot. I'm not going to go too deep into it, but you can see how I had a marijuana addiction. A lot of people won't say marijuana or skunk is not addictive. They say it's a habit. It's addictive. All right. We'll talk about this in another podcast, so because you can talk about it as well. So where was I? What was I saying? So looking at the way drugs and addiction have an effect on an individual, it's devastating. And it's devastating for their family as well. You know, the people that are surrounded by them, because they're the ones that really suffer. You know, watching someone they love deeply struggling with a devil or a demon, because that's what it is.
Yeah. And I feel like with addictions, the addicts will always put the addiction first. It will always come before everything else.
Always.
You know, like I've got, if you're going to speak about like drugs, even gambling, no matter what it is, if you've got limited resources, them resources is going on that addiction. You could have £20, yeah. If you've got a weed addiction, you will spend that £20 on the weed, and figure the rest out. Do you know what I mean?
I've been there. I've done it.
Yeah, like, so it is one of them ones where it alters your brain chemistry.
Getting back to initially, like at the beginning, when I told you about the way it can form. It doesn't form for everyone the way I said it.
No.
But it formed for me like that. And that's why I can only talk about my own experiences. So at that time, when you start to dwell and get yourself involved into this grown-up world, I can handle it, sort of thing. You don't change your life for it. You just fit it in when you can, on a Friday night, maybe on a Saturday night as well. Didn't pick up that night, it was fine, still had a good night. But over time, you start to notice that it becomes more and more frequent. And now it's Thursdays, Fridays nights, Saturday nights or whatever. So you don't change your life for it. But over time, when you start to really dwell with it and you wrap yourself up in it, you actually start remoulding your life, and you start fitting your life around your drug life.
Yeah.
So your life now is like the way you come home. You go home a certain way to pick up gear. You'll make sure you make the telephone call during the day. You need to get through and make the telephone call. You got it, yeah. Make sure you pick it up, or whatever. So you start to form your life around your drug life. But now your drug life is your normal life, and your external life is a struggle. It's an energy, it's an effort, where you just want to be like zinged out,
left alone to do what you want to do.
You want to be left alone to be in control,
and anything that will
get in the way,
you'll
put them aside.
You've got a problem with.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, I feel like at the beginning you use it. In the end it uses you.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And in the end it does more harm than good. Mentally, physically, socially. No matter what it is, I feel like an addict will always be like, it's okay. I'm fine. Especially when you're a functioning addict, because your idea of a functioning addict is you get up, you go to work, you come home, you reward yourself. You get what I'm saying? Yeah. But it's still a problem. Yeah. Because if it wasn't a problem, why do you do it? And it is important as well when people will deny that they're addicted to something. I don't have an addiction. I can stop at any point.
Yeah.
Well, you obviously cannot, because you would.
Yeah, but they're all substances.
Yeah,
all these things contain a substance that gives you some sort of element of a dopamine release or an escapism or some sort of reward. And this is what it is. It's how our brains start to figure it. They start to figure it out.
You know what's a prime example as well? Do you know what NOS is?
Yeah, the gas.
Laughing gas, yeah. So the media will brand it as like hippie crack. Yeah. So, you're sucking it on a balloon, whatever. Stops the oxygen flow to your brain for a moment. Oh, euphoria, laughing, ha ha ha, whatever. Well, there is an epidemic of people addicted to this stuff. And they're not just doing 1 or 2 balloons. They're doing massive canisters of these things. And they're mainly younger people, but now they're paralyzing themselves. And from an outside perspective, you're a little bit like, how can you get addicted to that? But it's easily done.
See, there's going to be people that will watch this and laugh at what you say. All right? So, because they take it. They go, what's she talking about? She's been watching too much news. I'm on about the people out there that are still taking it.
But they wouldn't they?
That's what I'm trying to explain to you.
Yeah, they would.
So, it's on what side of the fence are you?
Yeah.
All right. So, can you be talking about it, or are you going to be taking it?
Definitely.
It's let's see, drugs. Obviously, we see how we drift back to drugs. It's like, alcohol.
I feel like alcohol is
one of the biggest problems.
It's one of the biggest rewards, like you say. People will work all week.
Gambling.
Yeah.
So if you look at these things, these are things that I can't understand. And I know it generates a lot of money and a lot of tax revenue and stuff like that. Is that we make it too easy for people to purchase these things and gamble. I mean, if you're looking at alcohol now, alcohol's sold in nearly every other shop. They're open 24 hours a day. If someone's got an addiction or a problem, you can't just go, well, yeah, but they should deal with their problems. No, you just don't know what their personality is like. You don't know what their surroundings have been like. You don't know if they're on the edge of being homeless. You don't know if this is their last resort. When you look at a gambler, there's a betting shop on every bloody corner. Walk down Deptford High Street. There must be 10 or so gambling shops, and they're opening up all the time. These are betting offices with roulette machines. Yeah. They've got every type of escapism, not reward, escapism that you'll ever find. Look on your phone now. There's gambling apps, left, right, and centre. Some people are in control. They're in control because they've got bits in their lives. They've got a house, they've got their job, they're in control of it. And this is why these people won't say they've got a problem. Do I gamble? Have I ever gambled? Yeah. I remember walking into a betting office and doing a triple on a greyhound race, and I won about 400 quid, and I went back again and again and again and again using the same thing, thinking I was going to outsmart the bloody betting office, and I'd done it again and again and again until I thought, what the fuck am I doing here? Who do I think I fucking am? But I've always liked a little gamble here on the Grand National. Do you know what I mean? Or the European Cup, like England to win. But that's as far as it will go, because I can't see where the buzz is in that. I can't. It doesn't give me a buzz like drugs gave me. Do you understand what I mean? And that might be the difference between someone who gambles, where they go, I don't take drugs, that's dirty. You're dirty because you take drugs. But I've got a personality like you that will allow me to gamble, which is a demon as well. So society itself, or the system, you know, it I wouldn't say encourages it, but it doesn't help it. You understand what I mean? It's just a really strange, and it's frightening, because you've got kids walking into these places, you know, buying alcohol and whatever. Look, we're all going to learn, you know. This is one thing I think what drugs do. Remember, I've got back to drugs. I'm going to tell you a little story about gambling, but drugs itself. What drugs do when you take them young, it doesn't allow you to grow into an adult gracefully. You've
always said that.
Drugs fucking kick you into adulthood. This is what it does. It kicks you into adulthood. You go from a 16-year-old or a 15
to a 29-year-old.
29-year-old.
I know what you mean.
And people love it. They love the fact that they say, yeah, mate, done a bit of gear, mate, proper bit of gear, went down, Dave, picked up a bit of raffle, come back, Dave tooting it, go on, bro, you're going to do it, you're going to do it. This is talking about a 15, 16-year-old. He should be fucking thinking about, you know, his future. And he's been pushed into adulthood. But the problem is when the drugs end up taking a toll on him, his escapism is when he takes these drugs, it takes him back to when he was 17, free, and no responsibility, and escape to... This is what drugs do. It throws you from one end of the Richter scale to the other. I don't want to get too deep into the psychological side of it, because it's all in the book. All right? So how it plays with your mind. So can I tell you a little story about a friend of mine?
Yeah. All
right, so I've got an amazing story. And I actually spoke to him the other day, and we spoke about this story that I'm going to tell you. I've got an amazing friend. He's a Liverpudlian guy. I'm not going to say his name. And he has always had a gambling issue. Always. And how I first met him was he came into the shop, got a haircut, and then he turned around one day and said, do you mind if I pay you next time? And I was like, oh, bloody hell, that's a bit strange.
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah. And then he came in, and then he gave me double the amount. So what you find as well is with people that have got addictions, they're very, very clever. They're very shrewd. They know how to manipulate people. They know how to put people into positions to make them get what they want. They can do this. This is a thing about addictions. It drives you into you've got two personalities. This one, he'll do anything to get what he wants. And you've got this one that it's like, he pities it. Alright? So anyway, I got this guy, comes in, bomb, and he gave me 40 quid. I was like, bloody hell, you gave me too much. He was like, nah, you keep it. Started to know my name, and we got on really, really well. We actually become friends. Comes in one day, goes, oh, can I borrow 20 quid? Yeah, I'll give you 20. Came back, gave me 40 quid. I was like, fucking hell, mate, I'm making a bit of money. Can you borrow me 40 quid? Yeah, came back, gave me 60 quid. Can you give me £100? Yeah, I'll give you 100 quid. He's going to come and give me 100. And I actually realised what he was doing. He was gambling. Going to the betting office, and he was playing on the roulette machine. So once I found out his habit and that, and I told him, we started talking about it, this, that and the other, he'd become open with it, and he said, yeah, I've got a bit of a gambling issue. He says, I've got a big gambling issue. He started off when I was 9 years old playing on fruit machines. And he said, I just loved it. He said, I just loved the whole gambling life. And he said to me, he's won a bit of money here and there, nothing major. Anyway, this specific day, he walks in, and he says to me, Mem, can you borrow me 20 quid? I was like, yeah, go on then. So I give him 20 quid. Then he disappears. This was like on a Thursday. He disappears. And he turns up on the first day, just before I'm going to close work, and he ends up giving me 50 quid back. But he pulls out a wad of cash, which was round about £3,500. I said, how the fuck did you manage to win? He said, Mem, every betting office I went in, I was playing on the roulette machine, I was putting a tenner in, and I was winning 360 quid out, 360 quid. Every fucking bet I put on, I was winning. He says, look, I got £3,500 here. It's my lucky day, he said. I don't get many days like this in my life. I was like, right, really? Fucking hell. I said, what are you going to do now? I said, look, get your money, put it in your pocket and fuck off. He went, no, I'm going across the road to buy myself a suit. I'm going up London. I'm going to fucking have a time. I was like, fucking hell. He gave me my money. He fucked off. Saturday comes and I get a telephone call in the morning. And he was like, hello. And I was like, who's that? And he's got his Liverpudlian accent. I'm not going to do it on here because I can't. He'll end up sounding Italian. And he goes, ma'am. Yeah, he goes, I don't know where I am. I was like, what do you mean you don't know where you are? He went, I'm looking out the window. He says, I can see a Haagen-Dazs shop and I can see this statue. And I went, I know where you are. I said, can you see, what's that on the other side? Can you see like a cinema? I went, yeah. I go, you're in Leicester Square. He goes, I said, you're in Leicester Square. There's a hotel there. You're in there. I said, what the fuck are you doing in there? He went, I don't know. But he says, I need to tell you something. I said, what? He went, boom, boom, and more booms, man. I thought, oh, that's a funny one. The last time he said boom, boom, boom was when he won a bit of money. He said, I'm on my way down. Anyway, about 2 hours had gone by and he walks into my shop with that suit on, creased up. I was like, where the fuck? He said, I said, where the fuck did you sleep? He went, and he was holding a hodl. And this hodl was massive. You know, like a proper, I'm on about, this thing was like bam, bam, bam wide. And he looks at me and he goes, boom, boom, boom. And he walks beside my chair and he gets this hodl and he drops it on the floor. And when it hit the floor, it went boom. I thought, that's a lot of weight. What the fuck's he got in there? Clothes, shoes? He went, open it. I went, fuck off. He went, open it. And I opened it up. And in that bag was brick £50 notes. Blocks of them. Full to the rim. And I went to myself, what the fuck, mate? It was packed full up of £50 notes in bricks. £10,000 blocks like this, yeah? And he had 48 of them in there. He had £480,000 in that bag. And he showed me the betting slip. And I was like, how the fuck did you make? He said, Mem, I won it last night in the casino. Everything I was putting my money on was fucking winning. I was putting £1,000 down on number 2 and I was getting 36 grand back. I was putting £2,000, I was getting £74,000 back. He goes, I was putting £500, I was getting like 15 or 17, whatever it was, grand. But he said, ma'am, it would not stop. He said, the people were around me. The champagne was on the table, mate. It was pouring it. The managers there, everyone was clapping. He said, I was in my fucking element, ma'am. My fucking element, ma'am. He goes, I hit £680,000. 680 grand, ma'am. He said, I was there. I can't fucking believe it. This is the day it all started from £20. And he was sitting there with 680 grand. And he started to lose. And he said, Mem, they were trying to get me more pissed and more pissed because I took their money. And at £480,000, I walked out. And he goes, they got me a cab that drove me round and round and round. And they were trying to get me back to the casino. And I was like, nah, I want to get out. I want to get out. He won £480,000 and he had it there beside me. I love this fella with all my heart. I really do. He came in the next day, he had an haircut, he paid me £100. I took the fucking money, of course I did. He come in the next day, gave me a bit more money. He went and bought himself a Vivian Westwood shirt. He bought himself clothes. He bought himself a car. £480,000 with a major gambling addiction. How long do you think that lasted him?
A week.
2 weeks later, he walks in and he says to me, Mem, can you please borrow me £20? And I said, what the fuck are you doing? He goes, I'll give you my Vivian Westwood shirt. I said, where's your car? He goes, they took it. So, it's not the money.
No.
It's the buzz. It's the dopamine. And I asked him as well, in gambling, what is it that you find that's so attractive? He went, it's not the winning.
It's the waiting.
He said, it's the nearly winning. I said, give me an example. He goes, Mem, a devil kicks in. A devil kicks in. He says, I can't explain it. He goes, you put money down on a number and they spin that roulette table. He says, everything slows down. Literally, it goes slow motion. And he goes, you see this ball just jumping around the roulette table. And it's just like beautiful. And his table's spinning round and round. And you can see how it's slowing down. And the sound just from going starts to slow down. And he goes, you see it where you think it's going to drop into the hole. And your adrenaline goes through the fucking roof. And it lands next to it. He goes, that's the G-spot. Not hitting it. That you got so close to cracking it. And I look at him today and he hasn't gambled in 9 years.
Really?
He hasn't gambled in 9 years. But it has a huge psychological damage to him. You know, he keeps thinking back about these days and he can't go back in the betting office. The same way like an alcoholic, a recovering alcoholic cannot have a drink. The same way when I look at drugs, I'll be honest with you, I love a toot. I love to smoke weed. I love the way it makes me feel. But it don't love me, and I can't, it frightens me. That's the only way. It scares me of what power it has over me. Because by me not touching it, that devil don't come out. And I can't control that devil. The same way alcoholics, shoplifters, gamblers, they can't control it. And that's why it's hard. It's a psychological pattern they can't control.
Yeah.
And that's why they call it an addiction. How do you feel about that, what I told you?
Crazy, because I do know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
And I actually do remember being in the shop and cutting his hair stupidly. Do you remember? And him giving me 50 quid.
Yeah.
Do you remember?
Yeah.
And I was there like, what on earth? And obviously I was younger at the time, so I didn't understand it how you've explained it. But I can believe that happened. In fact, I know that happened.
And he's an amazing guy. He really is an amazing guy. And I remember at that time when he brought in that money and I said to him, look, leave the money here. Let me sort it out for you. Yeah, I got it sorted. I'm in control. I know what I'm doing. I said, bro, listen, we can walk into a fucking estate agent tomorrow and you'll have a house in fucking 74 hours, bro. You'll have a house in 74 hours.
But you didn't want that.
And you didn't need no tax references, no mortgage, no nothing. You could have walked in and shown him the betting slip and gone to the solicitor and gone, that's where I got my fucking money. And it was legal. That's the ticket, the golden ticket. And he just wouldn't listen. He was like, I'll sort it. I want to buy a 911. I wanted to... Before you know it, mate. I mean, you see him now. He's got teeth fucking missing. He's putting loads away.
I can remember seeing him sitting in the shop. And when I used to just look at him when he was talking and stuff, I can remember him pulling these facial expressions, like in between him speaking. And I can remember me thinking to myself, it's a bit of anxiety, isn't it?
Yeah. This is what it was. He did suffer from this That's what I'm trying to say. It's all down to your personality, and him having these anxieties or these, you could see 1 minute he'd come in, he was buzzing, next minute he was really low, and
it plays with you, doesn't it?
Him gambling, he escaped from it. It took him away from them uncontrollable mental thoughts, that gave him anxieties or anything like that. And I can relate to it, but I'm not going to get too deep into it. I'm talking about other people.
Yeah.
I'll talk about Dead Air as well. I looked at Dead Air, and the reality of it is that as much as we spoke about like the domestic violence and everything, and it all stemmed down to alcohol, I feel like it stemmed down to alcohol. Now I say alcohol, but he had an addiction. He had an alcohol addiction. So no matter what anyone says, my uncles and my aunties, whatever, they said, oh, he drinks a bit, he drinks. I say, no, he had an addiction. He couldn't go one night without it. And that's what created 99% of the problems in our family. And it all stemmed from not alcohol and addiction.
So it is important that we acknowledge that addiction does tie in crazy with mental health.
Yeah.
So even as far as the imbalancement that it gives you after long-term use of whatever it is, that can be an activity. It doesn't just have to be substance abuse. And then also the effects it has when you don't get what you want. So the irritability, the anxieties, the destruction, even like you've said, if you've recovered from whatever addiction you had, you still can be left with long-term psychological problems that you learn to manage, but they would never have existed had you not formed that addiction to start with. So yeah, I think that can be physical symptoms. It can be mental symptoms, depression.
You do get people that drift from addiction to addiction.
Yeah, they do indeed.
They go from alcohol, to coke. From coke, they'll go to gambling. They'll go from gambling, coke, and drinking, and then they'll just drift from one thing. I mean, it's all about how long can they financially sustain it. And how long they can manipulate their loved ones to believe that they're the guilty party. No, they're the innocent party. Before the family turn around and go, he's just a cunt.
Yeah. Because it is interesting, like without me going into too much detail, when you witness somebody that you love and care about have an addiction that is ultimately ruining their life, that their life could be so much different if they didn't prioritize this addiction, or if they at least tried to get better with it. There is a part of you that pities them because you feel sorry for them that this is the situation that they're in. And then there is the other half of you that can't help someone that doesn't want to help themselves. You can try and be understanding and, supportive and present. But that addiction will always come first. And they don't care what you say, how you say it, how you go about it. They don't care. As long as they have what they want. And it can be a very difficult situation. Like, I've seen it firsthand. Like, I know it can ruin relationships, tarnish it, like completely change the dynamics of what was once a healthy relationship. Yeah, and it's very sad because it just ruins it.
People tend to have a wake-up call, or they do tend to have some sort of realisation when there is a major crack in the family, a major loss, someone's passed away, realisation of life's too short, family, wife's walked out with the kids. Kids don't talk to him no more because the wife doesn't want the kids to be infected by, as much as I talk about, I make addiction sound like it's a contagious illness. It's sad because it can happen to anyone at any time.
They consider it a disease.
Yeah, I would say that as well. I would say it can happen to anyone at any time. It just takes you to be in the wrong state of mind.
Yeah.
For you to have that door that opens, that allows the devil to come in. And that's the only way I can explain it.
Yeah.
It's like you have a devil that comes in. I'm going to get back to that fella that I said about the gambling. Just one last story about him. I can remember, this is how bad he was at it, right? I can remember walking down Deptford High Street and he came out for a fag because he was at the bookies and I saw him and he went, "Man," I went, "Oh, what's that?" He went, "Come in a sec." I was like, "Oh, for fuck's sake, now I've got to go in a gambling shop." But at that time, I was a little bit all over the gaff myself, so I walked in there. And as I walked in there, this is how bad he was. Have you ever seen the roulette machine in a game? It's amazing. It looks beautiful. It's like...
It's a piece of art.
Mate, the way they've designed these things, it makes you... It captivates you. It's like you're in a movie. It's like you're in...
The cinema.
It's phenomenal, the way they've done it. All these games you can play. He only played roulette. He was playing 3 roulette machines at the same time.
Blimey.
That is the gospel truth. And do you know why he called me in? Because he couldn't reach the roulette machine because he was going bang, bang, and he was going, "Man, you stand there and you press it for me." I was like, "What am I doing here?" And I was just kept pressing the number. He said, "Press a number." I was like, "But what number am I going to press here?" And it was just going... And in the space of... He must have had a really good day that day. I think in the space of 5 minutes, he'd done 600-700 quid in that thing. And I was like, you throw your money away.
It's crazy.
Because money don't mean anything to these people.
It's just like a token.
The addiction.
Yeah.
That's what it is. It's the drug, the gamble. It's not getting caught shoplifting. It's the... we can talk about other addictions like pornography and all these other ones that you spoke about, like internet,
video games.
I mean, all these things are creating addictive personalities, and this is what we have to be a little bit aware of and create awareness for it. But yeah.
It's like I understand why parents try and limit children's screen time.
Yeah, but the parents are no better.
No, I mean, what I mean is we've spoken about previously how some parents will just shove their kids an iPad, just to temporarily I can understand why some parents are like, no, you're not going to have this to your accessibility to create these kind of addictions well before you're even of an age to form a sort of addiction.
It's the way the brain is being formed.
Yeah.
If you form it with a weakness like that, it's going to carry on when it becomes an adult. It's a hard one because parenting itself, look, we spoke about these things, so you can see how it's all starting to make sense. The podcast, how it all starts to link in, how one thing moves on to another thing. And I always said to myself from very, very young, I will never do drugs.
I think most people do, though.
Yeah, I will never do that. And to come out on the other side and to look back, the thing that I most regret is all the lost time.
Yeah.
I won't get too deep into that, but it was all the time that I lost. And my beautiful time, me. I want to finish off with one thing with addiction, all right, with myself. Is that okay?
Yeah, of course.
And I feel like what drugs, substances do, or a physical addiction, getting back to that escapism or reward, which is an addiction, it's a make-up that you stopped loving yourself.
Yeah.
And that's the true reality of it.
I do agree with that.
All right, you did really stop loving yourself, and I've always said it to. I will say it to you as well. You know, you must love yourself, because you can't love Daniel if you don't love yourself. Trust me. You might think you do, but you don't if you don't love yourself.
Yeah.
All right. So by you going to the gym and doing this, you love yourself because you want to better yourself. So it's a good thing. But drugs and these narcotics and all these addictions, what they do is they stop you from loving yourself, because
they push you further away from yourself.
Yeah, and what's happened is that you have psychologically fallen deep in love with the substance.
Yeah.
And not yourself.
And it also is only a matter of time before it becomes part of your personality.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like a new person, so to speak. So
you'll always justify it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
I'll be honest with you. I was a professional drug taker. When I mean a professional drug taker,
don't go too deep into it. We'll save it. We'll save it.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah.
All right, then we'll leave it like that.
All right then.
Have you enjoyed today?
Yeah, it's been good to. It's it's a subject where you could literally, like, I knew when we were going to do this that we could sit here for a good few hours talking about this subject in particular. So
it's hard because I got so much I want to tell you about drugs, different types of drugs, what they do to you, psychologically, physically, emotionally, and you know how these drugs have an effect. You know, your long-term effect. Not just
next podcast.
Okay.
Or
no, I'll tell you why. Because I'm afraid that I'm gonna reveal too much.
But I feel like you can still talk about these things without going into the depths we have in the book.
Yeah.
So we'll think about it.
But look, there's one reason why they call it drugs. You know, like a lot of people out there were looking, going, yeah, I can handle it, I can do it. I mean, look, let me tell you one thing. When you take drugs, it's a ticking time bomb ready to go off. There's only one problem. If it hasn't gone off, you still think you're in control. When it does go off, you've just got to be a little bit careful. And I told you this. When it goes off, you don't know how it's going to go off.
Yeah. And
it can go off in a really bad way where you can't get back on again. You're done.
Yeah.
You're disturbed. You're psychologically fractured, and that crack cannot heal no more. And just like when you said, you know, long-term drug abuse ends up with long-term psychological effects that end up being a big trauma in your life. It's really sad to know that that is the product and the end result of you taking drugs or these other subjects. Example, shoplifting, end up in prison, gambling, have no money, pornography, what's it called again? Pornography. Pornography, end up like sex crazy, you know what I mean? It's just ridiculous. But yeah, that's I feel like I'm going to go and have a joint.
So yeah, guys, I hope you've enjoyed what we've spoken about today.
I hope it weren't too morbid.
Yeah, I mean, it's not morbid.
If you're out there watching this right now with a reefer in your hand and you're looking at the reefer and you're like, are you going to blow? Are you going to blow?
Are you ticking?
Are you ticking? Tick, tock. Or you've just done a line like, mem. You know, but yeah, it's a thing to realise. Yeah.
Like we say, these are only our opinions, and it all depends on what side of the fence you sit on. So we'd love to hear your thoughts and feelings. Comments are always welcome. Don't forget to hit the like button, share it with your friends. And if you haven't already subscribed to our Father and Daughter podcast, please make sure you do. Also, if you're not following us on Instagram, our handle is @theonlywaywe knew. We'd love to see you following us. So, yeah. Anything else you want to add?
Yeah. No, I'm not going to go too deep.
Don't forget, you can also stream our podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And until next time, it's been a pleasure.
Don't have nightmares tonight. Just like, was that crime watch, innit? Don't have nightmares tonight. It's very rare this happens to anyone, but if it does, call 999. But no, on a serious note, I hope you've enjoyed tonight. It can bring things to home, you know. Addictions, you know, they can destroy families, you know, and they destroyed a lot of people that we know and our families as well.
Yeah,
you know,
but there is hope, and there is help. So if you yourself are someone struggling with addiction, or you know someone that is, there are vices out there that can support you and help you in recovery. So yeah,
on a serious note, that's true. Right, thank you, have a lovely evening, and we catch you up next time. Later.